Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Remarkable Coach podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pacheco, and today with me I have Faye Mandell. Faye is the creator of the Self-Powerment model. Faye, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
It's so good to finally get together. I know we've been trying to do it for a while. As you can see, I'm in a new spot here. There's been a lot of flux in my life in the past 3 months or so. So I appreciate you being patient with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you do, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. So I have a PhD, a master's in clinical psych and a PhD in counseling psych. And I lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts for a while. And in Cambridge, they don't care how many letters you have after your name. You have to be going to school at all times. So I walked over to Cambridge Adult Education, and the book was so thick that I said, I'm not going to go through this. I'll just put my finger down. Random. Little did I know at that time that random was the order of the universe. And I said, I'll just take either photography or, meditation or something. And my finger landed on a course called Quantum Physics in the Face of God. Now, I never took a physics course in my life. I had no idea what quantum physics was. I'm not a particularly religious human being. So I could not figure out why the universe had chosen to put my finger on that particular course. But it was given by Fred Alan Wolf. And he was the quantum physicist in the movie What's the Bleep, one of them. And so what he taught me was that E equals mc squared. That energy equals matter times the speed of light squared. So that if you could go 286,000 miles per second squared, this table would be white light. And I said, that's ridiculous. It's solid. I can bang it, et cetera, and so forth. But it led me to begin to question what is real and what is not. And that was about 40 years ago. And I have been studying that ever since. And the basic fundamental tenet that I'd like to talk about today is that we have our attention on the wrong syllable. Okay? We are focused on content, this and that, and what are you doing at the meeting, and goals. It's not at all about content. It's about where that content takes you in time and space so that you can get back to the place inside yourself in which you're listening to the information from your body and using it to create actions so that you stay in homeostasis. And I believe that is what we need to talk about today, because everybody is focused on the content. They have to have 50 slides, and they have to have this presentation, and they have to have this, and you have to do this and make sure that you got them all in color and blah, blah, blah. And it's so in error of what is fundamentally important to human beings. And to human beings, what is important is to stay in the present moment, listening to the information from your body, as all sentient beings do, and then using that information and using thought, pure thought, like Einstein did, with thought experiments or, trying out different potentials or asking deep questions like, how can we feed all the children in the world, or things like that. That is what we use thought for. But we use thought now, and this is the model, but we won't go into it today, to piggyback feelings, because the culture has told us that feelings are bad, and so we don't pay attention to them, and so they have to find a way to get discharged. So they jump themselves on a thought. And what people think are thoughts are not thoughts. They're feeling thoughts. They're a feeling which generated that thought to discharge. And I've been doing this for 40 years. And I can tell you that I have evidence from my experience that it's all about time and space. Because in the present moment, there is no time and space.
Okay. Tell us more about that. Can you expound upon that?
Yes, because in your experience, time and space is not absolute. In your experience, for example, I used to run before I became a yogi. I used to run on the treadmill. So you run and it's 15 minutes, and then it's 20 minutes, then it's 23 minutes, then it's 23 minutes, then it's 23 minutes. And that minute is experienced by you in an expanded way in your experience as 5 minutes. Okay. So you go with a bunch of friends, they pick you up at 7:00 and you're eating and drinking and having a good time listening to music. And you look at your clock, it's 11:00. And you say, how could that be? It only feels like we've been here for an hour. So time collapses. So in your experience, time is not absolute. We don't have, like today, we have an hour, but we have all the time we need to do what we're supposed to do today. And that's how I experience what we're doing today. Does that make any sense?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what questions do you have about that? Because the truth of the matter is, it's like we're focused on something that is totally irrelevant to the being of the human species. This content is all a conceptual abstraction of the experience. Because when you think about something, you move in linear time. Therefore, you are never in the present moment. And when you're not in the present moment, you get data or information. But when you're in the present moment, you get information or pattern. And pattern is a completely different database than data bits.
I don't know if I hope I'm smart enough for this conversation. We're getting philosophical here. I like it. I just hope I can keep up.
Sure.
So I understand the concept that time is relative, and you can be present in something, and it can 3 hours can go by like that, or
Correct.
You can be present in something, and perhaps you're miserable, right? And you're the 26th mile of a marathon feels like the first 25 miles combined.
Correct. Beautiful analogies. Yep.
So in terms of, well, let me circle back to what you were saying before about being focused on the wrong thing.
Yes.
Where's the connection there?
Okay. When you're in the present moment, your attention is on the direct experience of something. You're not thinking about it.
Correct.
So when you are in direct experience, you can't be thinking. And when you're thinking, you can't be in direct experience. And so there are two entirely different databases. And nature wanted us to get our information from direct experience. And thought came way after. Thought wasn't developed in humans until the nervous system was developed and images could be created and all sorts of things could happen. So we could create a memory of. Because thinking is always about something. It's always about something that has happened already.
So experiencing and thinking are mutually exclusive.
Mutually exclusive.
Okay.
That's really key. It's key to know that. And if I ask people how much your time during the day do they spend thinking, what do you think their answer is?
They probably have no idea.
From 0 to 100%, what do you think that people would say in terms of
thinking? Maybe 10%?
They say 100%.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
From the time they get up in the morning till the time they go to bed, they're thinking. They're thinking when they're brushing their teeth. They're thinking when they're taking a shower. They're thinking when they're making their breakfast. They're thinking when they're in the car. They're thinking when they're at a meeting. They're thinking all the time.
Okay.
So the reality is that
they're in their head the whole time.
That's correct.
And they're not in their heart at all. They're not experiencing things. They're not feeling things.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
So that the data that they're getting is always from the past. Because it's always about what you're thinking about something. About goes from here to here. About. So you're extrapolating from the experience, the thought. Does that make any sense?
That tracks. Yeah, it sure does.
It sure does. So the malaise of the culture of the world is that they're not getting authentic data. So they can't make authentic decisions. They can't see that, that the planet is heating up. They can't see it. That they see that we're the best, we have the most temperatures that we've ever had in the world, but they attribute that to something about whatever, and it'll go away and it'll pass. And then, we've had a lot of different seasons in our life about, and the earth has in its development and the ice age and all. They have no idea. If they use their direct experience, they would know that all is not right in Denmark here.
So, well, for something like global warming, I mean, I feel like that is something where it's more appropriate to pull that from data rather than experience. For example, right now, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere in the Washington State Cascades. You can see it's pouring down snow outside.
Unbelievable.
You're in Florida, I believe.
Yes, Fort Lauderdale.
Probably nice and beautiful outside, right?
Nice and beautiful outside.
So our personal experience is going to be completely different about something like global warming.
No, because I look at the fires in California, and I look at that New York City is 60 degrees. And I say to myself, how is that possible? I lived in New York City for many years. I don't remember 60 degrees except in July. I don't. But now it's there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's personal experience that can be evidence for it, as well as the science. I'm not saying one is not the only way to get the data. But I'm saying nobody gets the data. Nobody takes personal experience seriously.
Okay. Understood.
They all say it's subjective, and the culture has charged feelings negatively. Sure. And they confuse feelings, which are information from the body, which when you pay attention to them, jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body and create actions to maintain homeostasis, with feeling thoughts, which is a thought to discharge a feeling. But when you're thinking the content of that thought, you think that content is real. You don't know that there's another component to that thought, which is the feeling that created that thought. So, for example, anxiety is a feeling that lets you know that you're losing your focus. So when you pay attention, it just sits right in your stomach area, and it's all, and your stomach's queasy and all that stuff. When that is occurring, and it's uncomfortable, because the body wants you to pay attention to it, because attention is you remember in Star Wars, he had that sword that could do everything. Well,
lightsaber.
Yeah, the lightsaber. Perfect. That's exactly right. The lightsaber for human beings is our attention. Where we put our attention is where our reality is created. And we can put our attention anywhere we choose. Okay? So, but the culture has told us not to put our attention on feelings because they're bad. They're impulsive, they're histrionic, or for women, they're premenstrual. So the thing that we need to put our attention on to jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body, they tell us not to put our attention on. So we're good doobies, and we want to do what they tell us. And so we don't put our attention on the feeling. The problem is attention then discharges that feeling after it jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body. If you don't pay attention to it, it's got to get discharged, or it creates a thought. That's how it does it. It piggybacks itself like a horseback rider on a thought. But the problem is that the thought takes you out of the present moment, so you're no longer in the moment, so the feeling can't do what the feeling needs to do. And the thought then becomes the vehicle to discharge the feeling, having nothing to do with the content of the thought. So anxiety plus a thought takes you into the future and is experienced as worry. So worry is a feeling thought. Anxiety is a feeling that lets you know you're losing your focus, and you pay attention to it to jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body, who then shifts attention from the content of the thought to the sensory information in your body. So you start to feel your tush on the seat, your feet on the floor. You see that your eyes are focused on what you're looking on outside. So you're not in the future being a bagman or lady in New York City. You're right back in the room so that you can create the actions that you need to do to be successful in your life.
So how would you, in this model, how do you account for things that do color experience? For example, I could wake up in the morning and stub my toe in the morning, and that ruins the rest of my day. Or I could Go ahead.
Doesn't have to ruin the rest of your day. Why would it ruin the rest of your day? You have a choice of not to put attention on that and put attention on how glorious it is that you have a toe to stub, and how wonderful it is that you when that sperm hit that egg, you were given the gift of being a human, and there are 8 billion sperms, and if one of those other sperms hit that egg, you wouldn't be here. So how great that you could stub your toe, and you could transform that to make it something glorious rather than something.
So I acknowledge that, and I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
What I'm trying to get at is that the same experience can be interpreted two very different ways by the exact same person, depending on their state of mind when that experience happens?
No, depending upon where they are in time and space.
Okay.
If they're any other place but the present moment, they're going to be, oh, that's such a bitch, and it hurts, and I can't stand it, and now I can't get my shoe on because my toe is swollen, and blah, 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 and now I can't have this. When you're present, it's going to be, thank you, Lord, for giving me a body. Thank you. I really appreciate the fact that I can feel things. And yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but that's okay because I'm breathing and I'm smelling and I'm tasting and I'm touching and I'm grateful that I have a life. That's the difference. Where you are in time and space. It has nothing to do with what's happening in your thought process. The issue is that your thoughts can't take you to a good place. Only quiet the thoughts, attention to the body, because the body knows, a cat knows how to be a cat. Is that correct?
Sure.
A lion knows how to be a lion. Is that correct?
Sure.
A giraffe knows how to be a giraffe. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
We know how to be human, but we don't know how to be human because we're not paying attention to the information that allows us to be human. We're paying attention to what the culture tells us we're supposed to be excited about and care about and are important to us.
And we've created all these things around us to distract us.
Totally. And the whole idea is that we have on our DNA everything we need to know about being a human. Everything. It's all there.
Sure.
And we don't listen. Because we're not in the time, space, location to hear it. We're in thought, which already takes us out of the present moment. Does that make any sense?
It does. I love it. It's great.
I know. It's not only great, it works. The model is very simple. There are 4 steps to the model. What's hard about the model is to change your belief system so that what you used to believe is important isn't.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It could. Can you expound on that?
Yes. So,
give me an example.
I'm going to give you an example. So, my favorite food in the world was a ribeye. Loved it. Done on the barbecue, and a lot of toilets, or lobster, or vodka and ginger beer. Favorite things in the whole world. So then I developed a disease that says that you have to take these supplements, and in order to take these supplements, you have to change your diet. And what's the first thing that you can't eat? You can't drink. That's it. No drinking. What do you mean no drinking? Every night at 5 o'clock after I work, I have a vodka and ginger beer, and I have 2, and maybe I have a glass of wine since I've been 30. You're telling me no. And then the next culprit, no ribeye. No ribeye. What are you talking about? No lobster. Okay. No seafood. Okay. Plant-based whole foods. Vegan. That's the only thing I can eat that's going to cure me from the disease. Death sentence. Pure death sentence. Okay. However, I want to take the supplements because I want to get off the thing that they have me on. And so I take the supplements and I change my diet. And now I am in love with beans. I am in love with avocado. I'm in love with tofu. Because what has happened is that my taste buds have become unanesthetized. And now I can actually taste food. Okay? And now the natural foods taste delicious where they used to taste terrible. That's an example. Now, I had a driver for this behavior, which is, I want to get better. But the point is that my belief system was that this was a death sentence. And what it really is a lifesaver.
Yeah. Okay.
Or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds one of the takeaways that I'm getting from this is that a big part of this self-powerment model is mindfulness, presence of mind. No,
not presence of mind. The model is a methodology. It's the only methodology I know of. There might be some other methodologies, but I don't know of any that actually show you how to go from being somewhere else in time and space back to the present moment. And once you're in the present moment, you know.
And how can you talk a little bit about that model, about how we can get from out there
to here?
Right here? Yeah.
Okay. Yes. You listen not to the content of your thought, but you listen to the grammar and how the actual thought was created. So the thought, let's say, if you piggyback anxiety and you're in the future, it's, what if I don't get my raise? If I don't get my raise, I might not be able to pay my mortgage. If I don't pay my mortgage, I might not be able to afford my house. If I don't afford my house, I have to move. The kids are going to hate that because they want, and you're in your story. Okay. So the first thing in the model is you recognize that it's a story. And then you shift from the content of the story to where it's taking you in time and space. And you don't have to go past the first two words, because the first two words are what if. Where does that take you? To the future. So you know what feeling you piggybacked. So, okay, I'm in the future. I'm doing a what if story. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to put my attention on the anxiety, which is what sits in your stomach. So people are so far away from knowing what that feels like that we do a symbolization. We do butterflies. Okay, so I say, okay, shift from the story to the time, space, location, and now shift to the butterflies. Tell me, how many are there? Are they flying around? Are they on branches? What colors are they? And as you begin to put your attention on that place in your body, it jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body, and the body shifts the attention to the sensory data in your body. Your tush on the seat, your feet on the floor, and you come back to presence. The body has superior intelligence. It knows how to heal a cut. How does it know that? How does it create stem cells that become skin cells? How does it coagulate the blood? How does it, close up the artery? How does it do that? Okay. We don't know how it does it. Even doctors don't know how to do it, but they know that it happens because if you get a cut on Tuesday, on Saturday, the cut's gone. So the body has superior intelligence. It knows how, when it gets jump-started by the feeling, to create the shift in attention back to the body.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. And how does this relate back to your quantum physics with God class? I want to hear that story. That sounds fascinating.
Okay. Because I began to question what is real and what is an illusion. And I began to see that everything that we think about is an illusion. It doesn't have anything to do with direct experience. It's like Buddha said that all suffering comes from the fact that we don't know how reality actually works. There's reality, and then we put our judgments on and our comparisons. We worry about it. We feel guilty about it. We do negative self-talk about it. We judge it. We do all of these things. So we never get to see. It's like a line with cotton candy. That's the way I image it in my head. And all we're dealing with is the cotton candy. We're never dealing with the line. And so when we can take all those things off, because all those things, worry is a feeling thought. Anger is a feeling thought. Guilt is a feeling thought. Negative self-talk is a feeling thought. And when you can unhook those two and come back to the feeling and use it for its natural purposes to jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body, they are gone. So the model creates a place inside of you called the I am. Those are the words. And am is a present tense verb that lets you know you're in the now. And I is a pronoun that lets you know your attention is focused on what's going on inside of you, not what's going on outside of you. Okay, so it's always in. This is irrelevant because you actually create your own reality. You are the painter of the picture. You don't have to buy the painting that the culture tells us we're supposed to see.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So when you learn how to shift attention from the content to time space, know what feeling you piggyback, put the attention on the feeling, and jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body, then you're in a natural state. And now you're listening to the information from your body, and you're trusting it, and it guides you, and it's clear, and it's easy, because it's what a human being is supposed to do naturally.
And that leads to emotional well-being.
That is emotional well-being.
No.
Yeah. Got it.
Love it.
Yep. It's so simple. Everybody wants to make it so complicated. I remember when I was doing my doctoral dissertation, they said it has to be 87 pages. So I said, why does it have to be 87 pages? He said, well, because that's what the standard is, 87 pages. I said, but mine is 76 pages. They said, well, you have to add that many pages. So you had to go home. I had to go and I had to create new research. And I had to do the things and, asterisk who wrote it and blah, 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 to add to the 7 pages so that I could get, it was the most ridiculous experience. But the reality is that it's all ridiculous.
Yeah.
Except what's natural.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Good stuff.
So how does this, yes. So does it, and so there are 3 basic feelings. One is anxiety, the natural feelings. One is frustration and one is sadness. And they all piggyback, when they piggyback the thought, take you to different places. So frustration takes you on the space line to other people and things and negative self-talk. And sadness takes you to the past. Okay. And the feeling thought of other people and things is anger in the form of judgments, comparisons, negations, and negative self-talk. And when you're in the past, it's guilt, shame, or regret. So what the model says is none of these things are real. Guilt, shame, regret, anger, judgments, comparisons, negations, negative self-talk, and worry are all combinations of feelings and thoughts. Once you separate them out, you put attention on the feelings, they don't exist. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Could you imagine a world without that stuff?
I can. It sounds like pretty great.
Sounds like pretty great. Because then you're connected to the fact that you're grateful for having a life. And everything revolves around gratitude for having a life. So it's always miraculous. How do you get up every day? I feel extraordinary because I have a life.
Yeah, that's good.
And everything follows that.
But this is so much more than just a gratitude practice.
Of course.
Yeah. It's more than that.
Gratitude becomes natural when you are living in the present moment. There's no practice. It is the way that you live. For everything.
Yeah. Good stuff. Hey, who's your ideal client? Who are your typical clients? Who do you work with?
Anybody who wants to become aware.
Okay.
Anybody who's curious about the fact that this is ridiculous. And you know what I mean, right? And you know what I mean by this. Okay. This is ridiculous. And so anybody who is curious about, is there another way that doesn't have this craziness in it? See, I have a PhD, so I already know that the old paradigm, which talks about content, old paradigm therapy, does not work. Okay? I know that this is a new paradigm. Being concerned, caring about where you are, or knowing where you are in time and space as being the fundamental path to emotional well-being sounds very weird to a lot of people. Okay? But the reality is that's what it is. The quantum world still to this day sounds very weird to a lot of people. But we wouldn't be sitting here talking, you and I, on this phone if we didn't have it. We wouldn't have our computers. We wouldn't have our Teslas. We wouldn't have electric. We wouldn't have anything.
Sure.
Weird.
Yeah.
This is weird.
So how do you get your clients?
I get my clients mostly through referrals.
Referrals, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And talks. I love to give talks because I believe that what happens when you give a talk is you stimulate in people the possibility that there's another way. That's all I attempt.
Have you done a TED Talk yet?
I haven't done a TED Talk.
Why not?
Nobody's asked me.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good way to get this message out. This seems like this would, come together for a nice TED Talk.
I don't know how to do that. So if somebody from TED or whatever hears about this and says that would be a good TED Talk, then they'll ask me and I'll do it.
Maybe they'll hear this podcast. I'm telling you guys, if you're from TED Talk or TEDx, make it happen.
Really? No question. That's exactly right. Because I actually believe that, that there's no such thing as random as the order of the universe. Because in the quantum field, it's all connected. And it's all purposeful. When we look at the body and we think that a cell can do 25,000 things in a second, one cell. And we have billions of cells, and they all come together, and they all work with each other, and they all work with the organs and the circuit and the systems and all this other stuff. We are, Joseph Campbell wrote a book called The Inner Reaches of Outer Space, in which he postulates that we are as vast from the skin inward as the universe is from the skin outward. And I fully believe that.
Can you say that quote again? I want to write that down. I like that.
Yes, that we are as vast from the skin inward as the universe is from the skin outward. Joseph Campbell.
Nice. Joseph Campbell did Character of 1,000 Faces too. Is that right?
He's written many.
Yeah. Okay.
He's one of my favorites, but I have so many favorites. It's really, I always say this is the best book I've ever read, and then I go to the next one. I say this is the best book I've ever read, because they're also packed with gems of insight. So I have a whole bookshelf here, and I was doing something with my yoga wheel, and one of the books called me and said, "Faye, reach out. It's time for you to read this book again." And I read it again, and I just want to read you what 1 second, it's right here, so I'll just grab it right over here. And the book is called How the World Can Be the Way It Is. Okay? And it's on page 41. So I'll just read it. I opened it randomly to this page, but needless to say, I didn't. Okay. How do we doubt the very ground of common sense? We must find a way to doubt what we think, what we tacitly assume that we know. The best way is by carefully attending to what's actually going on around us and noticing that our stories never fully explain what is going on. This careful attending to what's happening, though uncommon, is by no means beyond the reach of ordinary people. Nice. That's what I opened to this afternoon.
Yeah.
If you don't, so I was giving an example to a friend of mine she was in a relationship with a gentleman, and we were having a conversation, the three of us, and he put her down. He said something that what you said was just silly or something like that. And I said to her, "You didn't acknowledge that at all." She said, "Well, I didn't want to embarrass him." I said, "But he just embarrassed you. Why didn't you?" And then she said, "Well, I wanted to keep the conversation flowing." And I said, "But he stopped the conversation immediately in terms of my perception because he put you down. So that had nothing to do with the conversation." So she had these belief systems about how things are supposed to be that actually did not let her experience what was so. That I had that conversation this morning. That's why I use it. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of examples.
Yeah. So she didn't even experience him.
No, exactly right.
Being rude.
That's right. Exactly right. I, on the other hand, thought that she should, I'm not going to tell you what I thought, but, but what I'm saying is that the fact is most people are not here. They're not in the now. They're not dealing with what is so. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Very interesting stuff. What is a typical coaching engagement look like with you?
It's an hour.
Okay.
And we usually contract for 5 sessions because it takes 5 sessions to learn the model. You have to know, you can't do any of this work without learning the model, because once you know how to get present, then we can talk about awareness. And what is awareness and how does it operate and how to use it. And then after we learn about awareness and attention and consciousness and all this stuff, then we go to the quantum world and we go to how things work for real in the quantum world. That something can be a wave and a particle. You can superpose things. 2 things can communicate with each other without any energy from Japan and New York. If they know how. I mean, those are all quantum concepts that we can apply to the macro world. If we get smart.
So 5 sessions over the course of how long? Is that 1 session a week for 5 weeks? Or, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because I like people to then I give them assignments during that week.
Yeah.
So they can practice.
They can go back and maybe not think about it, but they can go back and experience it.
Yes. So what I give them is this wonderful app called the Mindfulness Spell. And you can set it so it rings randomly during the day.
Yep.
And when it rings, all you have to ask yourself is, where am I in time and space? Where am I? Am I in the future? So I'm doing what if, or always, or could, or might? Am I in the past? Am I doing shoulda, coulda, woulda, or did, or was? Am I focused on other people, he, she, they, the government, or this, or that? Or am I doing negative self-talk? So you're starting to orient yourself in time and space so that you can know what feeling you didn't pay attention to. Then you pay attention to the feeling. It jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body, and voila.
That's great. That's great. I'm going to check that app out. What do you think about learning from past mistakes? So you're saying if you're in the past, it's coulda, woulda, shoulda, right?
Yeah. You've already learned it.
Sometimes reflection is important, right?
No.
Okay.
If you're in the present moment and you're fully in that experience, the learning is already encoded. It's part of the superior intelligence of the body. Okay. So why go back? Okay, when you go, this is the key. If you go back to the past, you lose the present moment. And the present moment is where the universe wants you to be. So sometimes you have to go back. Sometimes you have to go forward in this culture because you have to plan. If you're going to take a trip, you got to go, I'm going to go on December 31st and so blah, blah, blah. But you're aware of leaving and you come right back. You see what I mean? So for me, I'm very stingy about when I leave the I am, because the universe wants me to be in the I am. Otherwise, it wouldn't have put me here.
That's great. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Faye, this has been fascinating and a lot deeper than a lot of my other conversations on this podcast, which I appreciate. I hope that I've asked some good questions here. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on already? I'm sure there must be.
Well, there's a couple of things. One, anybody can do this. It's part of the gift of being human. So it's not relegated to people who have PhDs or know about quantum physics or anything like that. It's just part of reconnecting to the DNA and what you're supposed to do as a human. Oh, I forgot one thing. When you are present, you are driven by 7 drivers. Now, there used to be 6, but I added 1. So maybe there's a few more, but I don't know. These are the 7 major drivers of behavior. And they are service, compassion, integrity, accountability, courage, gratitude, and kindness. If your experience is being driven by you, by any one or combination of those 7 drivers, you're golden.
Nice.
That's it. So always look not at the behavior, but what's driving it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the other thing. So the other question is, what do you do with these podcasts?
Well, it'll be up on YouTube as a video, and then it will also get syndicated to all the major podcasting platforms. So Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere.
Okay. And how many people usually listen to these?
It depends on the podcast, but I can dig up some numbers for you, and I can send that to you after we're done. Yeah.
Okay.
No
The thing that's really important is that I've written a second book, which is called The Children's Book for Parents.
Nice.
And it talks about going into the world of the child, not demanding that the child come into your world. No, there are very few parents that know how to do that, because the parents think that they know how to parent. And they're clueless because they really don't go into the world and see how the child is organizing that information and organizing that data, and then guide and teach from that place. So the minute you say that's not right, you don't know, you don't understand it, you don't have enough experience, the kid's gone.
Yeah.
Lost him. Gone. So I've done a whole thing with this group called Kids at Hope that works with high-risk kids. And it says you have to connect, believe, and time travel with the kids. And that you have to be present with the kids because you have to go into their world. And so that's another whole project that I'm working on right now, which is to change the attitudes of parents.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Busy. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, it was wonderful.
Faye Mandell, thank you so much for being on the podcast. For our viewers and listeners, you can find out more information at www.being-present.com. Is that right?
Perfect. Yes, perfect. Yes.
Being-present.com.
Yeah.
And I'm your host, Michael Pacheco. Thank you again for and Faye, thank you so much for joining us here. This has been a really fascinating conversation for me.
Thank you very much. And can you stay on for 1 minute after we go off?
You bet.
Okay.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you so much.